Singing Boston Dog Training Channel. Today we're going to talk about teaching your dog to go to a mat or a place. This is a really handy skill. You can see he likes this game for a variety of reasons. If you are cooking dinner or eating dinner and you want your dog to go lie down someplace and not be underfoot, you can teach them to go to their mat. It's also great if you ever take your dog out to eat and sit on a patio. You can have this very nicely trained dog lying quietly on their mat beside you. It's also really great if you have an anxious dog. So if you have a dog that's worried about something, you can give them a job and a safe place. You can have them go to their mat, lie down. It's a familiar place, they get rewarded, they have a job to do. We're going to start by showing you the end behavior that you're after. Dice is going to be my demo dog for this, and he absolutely loves this game. So before I put this down, I'm going to get my treats in hand. I've got my clicker. So my criteria for Dice is that he'll go to his mat and lie down. My word that I use is mat. Dice, mat. Yes, good boy. Free. And I'm resetting him by giving him a free command and tossing the cookie away. Dice, mat. Yes, good boy. Yes, good boy. Yes. Good boy. Good boy. My criteria for him is that he lays down on this. So when he sat up, I simply waited. I didn't give him another down command. I let him figure it out for himself. I want to wait and let him think through it. That's the great power of clicker training. Okay, now that you've seen the end behavior, let's show you how you get there. The supplies you need to work this: your handy dandy clicker, a bunch of small size appropriate treats, and some kind of mat. You don't have to use the same mat every time. As a matter of fact, it's actually good if you don't, because what happens if you go out someplace, say you take your dog to a friend's house and you didn't bring your special mat and you want them to go lie down on a mat someplace, you can always borrow a mat or a towel or something from your friend and have them go to that. So when you're training this, mix it up. Have different mats so that way your dog learns that it's whatever you're pointing to is their mat. This is something like anything else. You're going to do short little sessions a couple times a day. Count out the number of cookies and make sure that they are size appropriately small. If you can see, these are very small for Ellie. You'll also notice that they're light colored. I'm going to be tossing cookies, and if you toss a dark cookie, they can't find it, and you spend the whole time with your dog trying to find the cookie instead of focusing on the behavior. I also use string cheese or Babybel cheese for this because I'm going to be tossing it on my floor, and I don't want to use something greasy like chicken. So we're going to start incrementally. So at this point, I don't want to stare at my dog because if I stare at her, she will stare back at me. I want to reward incremental movement towards the mat. So I'm going to start by tossing a cookie to get her away from it. Free. Right over there. Good girl. Now I'm going to stare at the mat. Yes. 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 And you can see her. What do I need to do to get the cookie? Yes. Good girl. Free. And I'm going to kind of reset, toss the cookie away. Yes, good mat. And I'm going to use the command, yes, good mat, which for me is mat, free. Some people might call it place, some people might call it home. So whatever word, just make sure you're consistent with it. Yes, good mat. And this is that timing I talked about earlier, free. Whoops. It's that timing that I talked about earlier. Ellie, over there. That I want to make sure that I'm not clicking until she gets all the way on here. My criteria is I want all 4 feet on the mat and eventually I want them to lie down. But you work incrementally. That's really important. So you work for maybe 1 step towards that mat and you click and treat. You don't want to lure them over because we want to teach the dog what we want, not just have them following cookies. And I'm not telling her go mat at this point because she doesn't know what that means. So while I may say, yes, good mat when she gets there, I don't want to give the command now, yes, good mat, good girl, because she doesn't know what that means. Free. And you notice I'm not doing the down yet. Right here, Ellie, Ellie, Ellie. Good girl. She has a little bit of trouble seeing sometimes. She's 12. Yes, good mat. Notice she's got a back foot off. She's sitting. That's okay for now. That's that incremental improvement. Free. And I'm doing a longer training session than you should normally do with your dog for the purposes of this video. But so you may even want to set a timer. I've been known to do that, set like a 3-minute timer so that you don't train too long. So now at this point, she's half on, half off. So I'm just going to ignore that behavior. I'm not going to correct it. I'm just going to ignore it. The behavior you want is the behavior, yes, that gets rewarded. The behavior that is ignored is the behavior that extinguishes. Free. Ellie. Yes, good mat, good girl. And now we're going to jackpot. That's indicating that's exactly what I want. So that's a way to call that out from the other behaviors that we've had. Yes, good mat, good girl. Ellie has also had some clicker training in her life, so she also understands that there is a game about, and so she has to figure out what it is. The more familiar with clicker training that your dog gets, you'll start finding when you get this clicker out, they start offering every trick in the world that they know. And it's really fun to watch them run through their behaviors. So she's on there, but I'm not going to click and treat that because I want her to go onto the mat and lie down. And she's looking for cookies, and that's okay. I'll just let her look. And you can see her trying to figure out, this is the great power of this type of positive choice-based training. She's having to figure out what it is her criteria is. If you find them where they get too far off and too distracted that they kind of forget that they're working, yes, good girl. You can reset them. You can maybe ask them for a quick sit or something and then come back to your game. However, if your dog goes off and forgets that they're working, it also might be a sign that you've been training too long. So you might consider stopping the training session at that point. Yes, good girl. Good girl. Yes, good girl. Free. Free. So you notice I started rewarding duration at that point. So once she's coming to the mat, once she's figured out to lie down, now I want to start rewarding her staying down. At first you might just get a quick down and you gotta be really quick on your clicking. But eventually, I'm going to delay the click, and she actually has one back foot off, until I get some duration out of it to indicate that I want her on the mat, lying down, and I want her to stay there until I release her. And over time, you can work up longer and longer to where maybe eventually your dog stays there throughout your entire meal if you have your dog going to lie down while the family is eating or while you're at a restaurant kind of thing. You can introduce your stay command to this as well. So when they go to their mat, then you ask them for their stay. Work up that duration incrementally. Don't expect them that, okay, I say mat, you run to your mat, you lie down, now we're going to stay for 20 minutes. So if you do take that mat out someplace, again, the restaurant example, make sure you can bring some treats so that from time to time you can reinforce that good behavior. It's not very fair to them if we've trained this and they've gotten rewards and now we take them out in public and ask them to stay for 20 minutes or even in the house at the dinner table, that now they don't get any rewards. So make sure you bring something, again, keep them small and reward from time to time. Give a good mat, good down, good stay. And if they get up and leave their mat, you can ask them back for that mat behavior, whatever your criteria is, whether it's to lie down, sit down, whatever it is, and then reinforce for coming back. So what you want when you're all done teaching this behavior is the behavior that you saw with Dice in the beginning. When he saw me pick up that mat, he was excited. He knew that this was going to be a game. So if you're doing your training right, when your dog sees this magic clicker come out, you should have that dog leaping through the roof with excitement. How you do this? You keep it short, you keep it positive, most of all, you keep it fun. Please bear with me while we talk for a moment. What we're going to talk about is going to lay the foundation for everything else that we're going to be training. With our positive choice-based training methods, it's really important that you allow the patience to allow your dog to make their choices. The choice-based means the dog doesn't have to do it. You're going to work to let that dog know what the end behavior you're looking for by making choices and rewarding the choices that you want by your click and your treat. We could lure the dog into the final behavior. In the case of today's training, we could take a cookie and simply draw them over to the mat. But then the dog would be following their nose versus learning what it is that we actually want them to do. Dogs are problem solvers, so we need to give them a chance to solve the problem. You're going to help your dog do that by your good timing with your clicks and your treats. Be on the lookout for signs that your dog is starting to shut down. A large indicator of this is if your dog starts sniffing. Another one might be that your dog just sits down and looks at you with this expression that says, I have no flipping clue what it is that you're looking for from me. If that happens, and let's say you're looking for that one more step towards the mat, in this case we are going to use a little bit of luring. Take that cookie, bring it that step closer, click and treat, and call it a session. You can pick back up on your next training session. Now, let's get to actually teaching your dog how to go to mat.